One of the biggest things that I've seen is AI as a technology is really pretty simple. It's a prediction engine. So, the ability of having the right information and the ability to adapt saved my face and probably saved my life. My name is David Gwynn. I am founder and CEO of AI Advisors, headquartered in Eugene, Oregon, and we help six, 7, and 8-figure businesses completely transform their business. We turn their chaos into cash flow, and we are an organization that is enabling and empowering business owners, founders, startups to leverage the magnificent capabilities of AI to completely transform their revenue opportunities, allowing them to operate better, faster, and cheaper than ever before, and in many cases open up entirely new industries. So I'm excited about the opportunity to get together with you today.
Right on. Glad to have you here. David, what is your secret to a good life?
My secret to a good life, Eric, that's a great question. Secret to a good life, I think you kind of find out as you experience things. I didn't come into the whole situation having the answer to anything. I found out a lot of things the hard way by making mistakes, by trying things, finding out they didn't work out and trying something else. I think the secret to a good life, however, is the ability to be adaptable. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to characterize the future as we kind of move into this new industrial age of AI, because things that we have been accustomed to doing our whole lives are completely changed. Just look like what's happened in just the last few years, since the advent of the internet, since the advent of the cell phone, since the advent of social media. Now with the emergence of AI, things have completely changed in a lot of different ways. One of the biggest things that I've seen is AI as a technology is really pretty simple. It's a prediction engine. It's something that takes words, phrases, context, and it predicts the next word in a series or the next phrase in context. And it uses that particular information in the context of a large language model, which is basically an agglomeration of pretty much most of the content of the internet, to find out what's most relevant in terms of the content that you're looking for. We use AI all the time. I mean, if you've ever bought something from Amazon, that's basically what's called a recommender engine. Well, that's just one simple example of the varieties of AI that are emerging in the world, of commerce. But you can do the same thing for everything from trying to find tumors in a human body that you can treat. You can use it to develop medications, depending upon the type of molecule that you're looking at. You can use it to figure out what weather patterns look like around the world. You can even use it to figure out how you're going to extract energy from the sun. So the types of things that we are experiencing as a society are really pretty miraculous. And if our grandparents had been around today, in a lot of cases, they would think that we were demigods or something, because the things that we're doing right now with AI are frankly nothing short of miraculous.
I want to dive into this a little bit deeper, but I want to go back to the adaptability. So where did you find that insight? When did you realize, oh man, I need to be agile, mobile, clever, right? Ready to pivot on a dime? Where did you find that? What were you doing? How old were you? What business were you in?
Right. Okay. So I found that out in a couple of instances, really pretty young in my life. I've always been a really curious individual. Curiosity, if they say curiosity killed the cat, well, it almost killed me, because when I was about 3 years old, my parents were remodeling a structure in Dexter, Michigan, which is just outside of Ann Arbor. It actually happened to be an old barn that they were remodeling into a home, because that's what they could kind of afford at the time, and that's what actually was available when my dad took a new job as a research chemist, moving us from Parkersburg, West Virginia, to Ann Arbor, Michigan to start a educational program that was funded by his company to earn his doctorate. Well, in the process of running around this particular property, I noticed this little jar of what I thought was cold cream sitting on the counter where some workmen had been working on the barn. And I'd seen my mom putting this stuff on her face at night, and I thought, well, that'd be cool to feel what that feels like. So I took this little jar and picked it up and slathered it all over my face. It turned out that jar wasn't cold cream, it was industrial lye. So it started to burn my face off. And I screamed bloody murder. And my dad, who just luckily happened to be there, knew exactly what needed to happen. He needed to get a neutralizing agent, which in this case, since that's a really, really strong base, he needed to get an acid, and he needed to get it now. So he ran me across the street, got some vinegar and some running water, and ran it over my face. So now I still have a face, obviously. So, the ability of having the right information and the ability to adapt saved my face and probably saved my life. The second example of adaptability actually came a few years later when my family and I moved from Ann Arbor to Eugene, Oregon. And that was actually something that happened completely out of our control when the moving van that we had in our that was moving across the country ran down a mountainside just outside of Baker, Oregon, a feet. When we got the news that this moving van that had everything we owned in it, it was about 4 days before Christmas. So we were feeling pretty down, thinking that, pretty much it was over and everything that we owned was at the bottom of a canyon sitting outside of Baker. Well, luckily, they got like 3 big cranes in there, and they hauled this, semi-truck out of this canyon, and they drove it over to our home in Eugene. We got that moving van or a driveway the day before Christmas Eve. So we unloaded that moving van like crazy that night, and then went out later that night and Christmas Eve morning to do our Christmas shopping. And we had the best Christmas we've ever had. The ability to adapt to that misfortune actually kind of brought us together as a family, even though we were in a brand new area with people we didn't know anybody about, nobody knew us, Adam. But we, after that, we kind of, bonded together as a group, and we really enjoyed, relying on one another's company. We relied on one another's capability to bring the holiday together. We had a phenomenal time, and we've never forgotten that. So
I love that. I'm going to extract maybe one more story out of you on this. That's it's related to a Buddhist kind of story where maybe you've heard it before, where there's a farmer who worked his fields for many years, and one day his horse runs away, and the neighbors come and they say, "Oh, what bad luck." He says, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returns with 2 wild Mustangs. And again, the neighbors come over and say, "Wow, what amazing luck." And he says, "Maybe." The next day, his son is riding one of the horses, is thrown off and breaks his leg. And the neighbors come and they say, "Wow, what terrible luck." And he says, "Maybe." Finally, the day after that, the military comes to town to draft young men to fight in a war, and they pass the son by because his leg is broken. And the neighbors again come and say, "Wow, what amazing luck." And the farmer just shakes his head and says, "Maybe." And so I want to ask you, is there a time in your life when there was something really not good luck that was happening to you, kind of like this falling down the mountainside or getting lye all over your face? Is there another time later in life where you remember consciously, not necessarily as a child, but as an adult, looking at the situation in front of you, and you were able to take a more long-term approach and just kind of see the opportunity for what was, where you were able to say maybe and just press on and it all worked out for you?
Well, I'm laughing because times that, at least in my experience, have been temporarily painful, but in the long view of things have turned out to be one of those instances where, when God closes a door, he opens a window. That's basically what happened to me in terms of, in many different instances. A couple of them that kind of come to mind was when I was, a college student. I was going out with a couple of young women that I was, really pretty infatuated with, was really strongly considering marrying. Turned out that those relationships didn't work out. In the long view, those turned out to be incredibly superb, outcomes, because it would, my life now would have never happened had I, done what I thought was, what I wanted at the time. The other instances of those would be in my professional career, where I had setbacks with that weren't happy with the outcomes that they got and some of the securities that they purchased. In terms of the outcomes with those individuals, even though the securities that they had purchased that went down resulted in temporary losses, the fact that they changed the securities that they were buying in ultimately made them ridiculously wealthy. And it was the ability to adapt to those kind of misfortunes that characterized their financial fortunes. But it also was kind of an aha moment for me, which was, it's not so much of when you get knocked out in life, it's whether you get up. And when you get up, what do you do about it? Do you keep fighting? Do you keep going for what it is that you want? Do you keep yourself open to opportunities, or keep your mind open to you haven't seen before? Those have always been the things that have been the most transformative and most positive in terms of, my life to this point. And every time I run into young people that, ask me about, in fact, I was just speaking in front of a group the other day of students at the University of Oregon that are looking at careers in AI. And I just said, hey, you got to be willing to adapt, but you got to follow your own muse. You got to follow your own vision. What's going to be right for you is not going to be right for the next person, but stay open to the possibility that you may not know everything right now.
Yeah, as far as the so there's two things that come to mind for me. So number one is there's a meditation that and it's very much when you are dealing with energy in your body. And if you sit and you think about all the things that you regret, right? You go back and you can find them really quick, as you know, right? Your brain is constantly trying to remind you of all the foolish stuff that you've done in your life. You can sit down and you can feel that regret. And typically it's going to release a little bit of cortisol in your system because, it's either embarrassment or fear that you're feeling. And if you just let yourself feel that feeling for a minute, 2 minutes, and then you start to think about where you are in relation to that, right? To say, oh, wow, if it had gone a different way, I wouldn't have this, and this. This wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met this person. And so you can almost take that experience and grab it by the nape of its head and just shove it under the water and suffocate it to death, right? Get away from it, and then it's gone.
Right.
You get that feeling of resolution and satisfaction. And it's this dichotomy of, on the one hand, you have to think about the thing that you missed out on, but you use logic to then reinforce the infrastructure of the new belief that you create for yourself in that moment.
Yep.
It sounds like you've done that for yourself over the years quite a bit.
Yep. I've found that in personality. A couple of other things that I found recently that were really kind of aha moments for me is my whole life I've been right-handed. I've been relatively, fortunate to be a collegiate athlete, and I pitched for a long time with baseball teams all the way up to semi-pro. But the thing about it is that even though I've been always dominant into my right hand, I always thought my right eye was the one that I was supposed to use for sighting and things like that. When I was going out with my son and my dad, his grandpa, to go to the shooting range a few months back, that I was going to try shooting left-handed. And I would constantly miss, moving targets, clay targets and things like that, a little bit up and to the right. I started shooting left-handed using my left eye. I have yet to miss. That simple change, focusing on what actually my natural strength was, has made all the difference in the world, at least from that standpoint. And the other thing too is that in terms of, dealing with my, professional career, one of the things you find as you get a little bit older, and I'll be 65 here in a couple months, is the fact that as you get older, you kind of get a little bit more perspective in terms of the types of things that you're really, really good at. One of the things that I found out as well in the course of, dealing with pretty complicated topics in terms of AI, because I went back to school to get professional post-grad degrees in AI from the University of Texas. And now I'm in some really, really great programs with some private in the US. I have been actually had, which I didn't even knew I had for my entire life. I was always wondered, why do I act certain ways? I mean, why am I, constantly fidgety or constantly looking at things in different ways? It turns out that was just the way I'm wired. But it turns out that ADD is not a burden. It's a superpower. It's a gift. And because I'm able to think and speak and act and more quickly, not only has it saved my life on some occasions, not just the time I was telling you about earlier, but it's also saved me from potential accidents that I had on the road, where I noticed out of the corner of my eye, rapidly coming cars that I avoided, projectiles that I've avoided. In athletics, I was able to fend off and catch, 110 mile an hour baseball that was coming right between my eyes. Those are the types of things that you typically don't have unless you really got some gifts in terms of your mental capability and reflexes. So I look at it as a gift.
A little bit of neurodivergence goes along.
A little bit of neurodivergence is right.
Yeah. I bet you that it was your left eye that saved you from getting that ball in the face.
I think you're right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you've talked a lot about AI, and I do want to understand a little bit more about, you've got all this training, you've got all these courses that take in. You have this company now that helps people explore AI and how it applies to their business. But how do you use it in your business?
Mm-hmm.
How do you leverage AI and automations? What tools do you use? Give us a breadcrumb trail that will lead us to the promised land.
Right. Okay. So the way that I use AI to structure business is I play to my strengths. The biggest tool that most people have heard about is certainly ChatGPT. But the thing about it is that ChatGPT is also evolving. If you've seen the news in the last day or two about the 12 days of what is it? 12 of is it shiftness or something like that? Shipness. There we go. Yeah, that they are releasing all kinds of tools. They released Sora yesterday, the video tool that actually allows you to develop full motion video with simply a mention of it. You have the ability to utilize the new search function, which leverages a very important capability called RAG, which is called retrieval augmented generation, which basically goes to the web and pulls whatever information that the model doesn't have to help you make decisions and answer queries and things like that. The thing that I've used of building my business have been really on the quality of prompts that you put into ChatGPT. The quality of the prompts you put in literally determines the quality of the answers you get out. It's kind of like the value of your own education. I mean, if you have spent the time yourself investing in your own mental capabilities, you're typically going to get better outcomes, maybe not all the time, but most of the time. And that's one of the reasons why people hire you, is because of the quality of the outcomes that you produce. So what I've done in terms of growing my business is I use a chain of tools, multiple tools operating simultaneously. A chaining together of multiple tools is absolutely critical in terms of the development of an AI-driven type of company. And that's why people hire me, is to put together the right combination of the 40,000 plus AI tools that are currently in the marketplace. That's up from 16,000 just a couple of months ago. So the cool thing is that now in terms of AI, you can use video, you can use text, you can use images, you can use voice. The amount of capabilities that are out on AI are quite stunning. And the thing about it is that this is all driven not by a programmer. You're the programmer, because the language of AI is your own voice. So just by figuring out what is it that you want, where do you want to go? If you load that information into your profile in ChatGPT, the paid version, I think, is actually absolutely essential for people. If you load that information and let the AI get to know you and what's important to you and where you want to go, the models can really help you kind of chain those types of things together. It works pretty well up point, and that's when I get the phone call to take people over the last few miles.
One thing that I've been doing is I feed the AI specifics on the processes from book summaries. So I'll ask it, do you know Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss? And it will say, yes, certainly. It gives me a quick summary. And then I go, could you go into more detail on that summary? Okay, I need you to save this model and this process into your system. And so when I ask you for a sales process related to a business, you are going to confine it within this model.
Right.
And so I learned a long time ago that creativity loves constraint. And for an AI, if the nod to having really good prompts, if you're able to constrain the model to specify some output that you're looking for, then the results that you get are far more actionable. And that's what I found with, like, I just put in Success by Jack Canfield. And I said, give me a YouTube script for a meditation based off of principle number 5 from Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And it gave me a 15-minute, and it would even say how long to pause for, right? To let somebody like sit there and think and visualize and stuff. And so the model of making sure that it has a reference point, use this information to do this task, has been a total game changer for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I've also been a professional investor for much of my professional career. As a venture capitalist, an investment banker, and professional investor, one of the things that I've noticed lately too is just how much algorithmic trading there is in the stock markets, particularly in the US, which means that it's electronically driven. And the thing that I've also noticed is that the biggest thing that I think an investor needs to realize is that investments have patterns. If you know how to recognize patterns, you've got a leg up in terms of the rest of the market if you have a long time frame. But if you have a short time frame, that's where AI really gives you tremendous advantages, because it recognizes patterns much quicker than the human mind can. And it can position you in such a way to help you maximize your profits. So, and it can also help protect you against losses. So the thing that I think, you're going to have happen in terms of, certainly our population here in the US, and we're very fortunate to be living right now in this country as the world leader in all things AI related, is that the speed of innovation in AI is nothing short of absolutely astounding. I mean, the things that just OpenAI is certainly coming out with some things, but you name any major company out there, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they're all coming out. It is just amazing.
It's a beautiful world we live in, David.
It is.
Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/David W. Gwynn, and that'll give you my whole profile.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been the PulseOx podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.